So good evening, everyone, and welcome. Let me just take a moment to take a breath. And good evening, everyone. I've been sitting comfortably relaxed here in my chair for the last several minutes before logging on, and I'm happy to greet you at the virtual chapter for what month is this one now? It's April already, is it not?
April.
uh,
Yeah, it's
2024. And well, we're just thrilled to be here and thrilled to have you all here with us. As you see, I am sitting once again lakeside and really enjoying the beautiful weather. So, who saw the eclipse? Show of hands, who saw the
it.
eclipse?
We had about 94% totality. Not quite totality, but it was pretty close. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, cool.
Angela, did was that a yes? Did you were in totality?
Yes, we were in totality for just over 3 minutes
And where did you see it?
in Dexter, Missouri.
All right. So we did not in Chicago. It was beautiful. I mean, we got a lot, but we didn't get total darkness. So,
Mhm.
from your perspective, I want to know, was it as spiritual as everyone said? Was it as moving? Was it as emotional? Could you see stars?
There,
Fill
I
us
did
in.
see, I saw two, what I thought were stars, but then I have since read that they may have been, I don't know why I don't know if y'all can see those bubbles. Stuff just pops up randomly on my screen. Um, I thought it was two stars, but I've since read that it was planets.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
maybe, I don't remember which two. Um, but it was pretty spectacular. It wasn't total blackness. I thought I didn't know if it would be total blackness or if it would just be normal nighttime darkness, and that's what it was, just normal nighttime darkness.
I hear it rumored that the stars were Jupiter and Venus, by the way.
Yes.
We had a most interesting thing because I had a class going on, so it's the middle of the afternoon, and suddenly everyone wants to, we're going to rush out and do this, and one of our participants had brought several pairs of glasses, so that we could
Hmm.
look through them, and but my favorite was one of the participants brought a welder's helmet. Which was just the perfect thing, So she's out in the backyard looking like Diver Dan, and the neighbors people came out of their houses, which is what I like. There are those certain events, whether it's the cosmic miracle or whether it's just that thing about communities when something unexpected or unusual happens. uh People that you don't ever even speak to will strike up a conversation and gather around.
I was
Hmm.
going to even ask that question, Michael, about the whole hypnotic approach of the whole thing about community. Because in Carbondale, Illinois, which is it was right in the path of totality, at the university there, Southern Illinois, they have a huge stadium, right? And they invited people into the stadium for $25 a ticket to sit in the stadium and watch the eclipse.
Mm.
Meanwhile, for $0, you could stand right outside in the parking lot and watch it for free. But the stadium was full of $25 payers and ticket holders to be in community. Isn't that interesting?
Ah,
I'm not the only one who knew that it was free right outside the gates, but still there was the draw, the pull of community, of being together, that hypnotic effect.
there's a thing that while you're at this, because this really is a hypnotic effect. Uh, we also have a similar result here in Florida when we have a hurricane. Something happens that's significant. One of the things in terms of getting connection and doing the hypnosis, the work that we do, of course, involves the prerequisite that you get rapport in the sense that there is some sense of we share something in common, that there's a connection between us. And I think the funny thing is the neighbor that you haven't talked to for 15 years was in the same hurricane that you were in the day before, and then everybody comes out of the woodwork, and community is community. And then, of course, there's all that stuff about hormones and the was it oxy?
Pheromones, and yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly right. Uh, yeah, so it's so cool.
And
Tragedy and
having a beautiful,
eclipses.
I'm sorry.
I said tragedies and eclipses will bring people together, and maybe even a Taylor Swift concert or two as well.
Isn't it interesting the kinds of things that will bring like-minded people together? Because there were also people yesterday who did not take the suggestion, who wanted no part of it. I had an appointment earlier yesterday, and the security guard at the building, as I walked out, I said, "Oh, it's almost eclipse time. Are you excited?" And he said, "I want no part of it. I'm not going out there. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm tired of hearing about it."
Well, I understand that the whole thing actually just took place in a TV studio in Oklahoma.
Isn't it interesting that we could all that it's got to be like that movie Ed. There's really just a fake sky above us because they managed to, in that whole path, darken the lights at the same time.
Hey,
Just like the moon landing.
exactly right. Exactly right.
And it happened kind of around the world. So there were memes also yesterday on Facebook about what the Flat Earth Society saw in the eclipse.
Yeah. There were some countries that had skipped completely.
Right.
They hadn't paid their dues, I suspect. I don't know.
No, I really, all those things. I live in just a tiny town just north of San Francisco, and we went to the town square, which was open, and we had glasses on. We're only 20% here. And
Yeah.
we could see it, but we watched it. And then we yelled out, "We've got glasses. Does anybody else want to look?" And more than 20 people came up and borrowed our glasses because suddenly they were thinking, "Nah, I don't know. And they're thinking, "Oh, yeah, I do." And then when they saw it, it was because when it comes to the trees, you have little moons. So that there's trees here. And there's little moons that are on the sidewalk, and you can watch those little moons take place through the leaves.
See,
So-
they were really jealous, although Alan, the whole time. And what it was that they hadn't gotten the glasses, and they had this attitude of, well, I didn't get my glasses, but the hell with it, because it probably isn't such a big deal anyway. And suddenly, Alan
You
Barr
became
steps up and
Suddenly,
changes their.
we created an event.
Well, scarcity. We have something that you don't. We have something that a lot of people right about now wish that they had. Scarcity. That also is in and of itself a suggestion and enticing and draws people to you.
Yeah. It's to me every time.
Isn't it interesting how we're seeing these little pieces of hypnosis in everyday occurrences all the time? And it's one of the reasons I call what we do, please don't be offended by this, I call what we do strategic trickery. Because there is a degree of trickery in the best possible sense. I mean, that could be a negative word or it can be a positive word. And when you put strategy to it, in our case, for the client's benefit, that's really helpful, is it not? And it happens in mass hypnosis, whether it's to your benefit or not. It happens in church hypnosis. Typically, the people who are showing up in the event have already convinced themselves that they want to be there and have done the induction of walking through the doors, right? But it's all kind of the same thing. It's suggestion. And some people take the suggestion and some people don't. Even on something as miraculous and wonderful and incredible as that was yesterday, some people didn't take the suggestion. Some people just couldn't care about it at all. And some people paid $25 to go inside the stadium, and some people stood in the parking lot for free. Which and as long as they were all looking up or not looking up, they each took the suggestion.
Mhm.
Each of them is hypnotizable because each of them took the suggestion that something unusual, miraculous, or strange was going to go on in the heavens. And either they took part, or they said, that's dumb, that's not for me, or they ignored it or avoided it, didn't want to see it.
I just realized what happened because I had such a different experience. Somebody said to me, look up Eclipse. And so I'm typing Eclipse into Google. It was an entirely different thing to me. So now I understand there was something going on in the sky too, I guess. Yeah.
Each takes the suggestion in their own way, and we can't make you take the suggestion the way we want you to take it. Even if it's something as spectacular as a solar eclipse. Nobody can make you take that suggestion the way they take it. So that's where the strategy comes to the trickery or the manipulation or the mind change that we do. We understand how the mind works. We understand how human behavior works, or hopefully we do. And then we can move someone to a place, move someone to a thought. And quite honestly, I'll say that what I've always said, hypnosis is not just for the good witches. So it can have nefarious uses too. It is a technique. It is a modality. Most of us on these meetings are doing it for the best possible reasons, but there are plenty of people using the same techniques and strategies for nefarious reasons.
And our job, the primary function of our job, is to get people to change their thinking about something. Right. I mean, that's it. That's exactly it. Consequently, it's interesting to consider that without realizing, people are coming to us saying, manipulate my thinking. I want to leave here thinking something different than I did when I came here. I want to leave here with a different perspective of my experience than the one that I came here with. That's the thing that we are the masters of. That's what we've got above and beyond any other profession that I can think of.
And that's where it behooves us to use strategy in the manipulation. Because when they come to us asking for this, it automatically sets up a layer of resistance. They're coming in, letting us know they're expecting us to do something to them. I don't care what the reality is, there is some level of expectation, anticipation that something will be done to them. And so there's a part of them that wants to, if there's total and complete trust, every part of them can just relax into it. That's a wonderful thing. Otherwise, there could be a part of them that is always on guard just to make sure that nothing will happen. Because they've already set themselves up with the suggestion that something is going to happen. Does that make sense? So when they ask for a hypnosis on purpose, that's why we want to cross that Yabut factor, that critical faculty, so that those light bulb moments can occur. They're asking for it, so they're expecting something to happen. And if you happen to make change without any obvious hypnosis occurring, still do a little obvious hypnosis so they'll have something to believe in. Otherwise, they may not believe that there's a change that's occurred. Alan, what was that? Unmute so I can hear you. Share that.
I'm listening to you and agreeing with you. And since I talk with my hands, even when I'm thinking, that was it.
Well, thank you. And it's so good that you said that out loud because, you know, on the recording, they wouldn't have seen you talking with your hands and agreeing. And oh my gosh, I want all the agreement that I can get, right? And want that recorded on video someplace. It's just so interesting to me what it is we get to do for a living. You know, I would do it for free. Don't tell it to me. But I would do it for free because I love it so much. And we get to do this all day long. And the great part about what we do is whatever you believe in is very likely to work for you. And it really doesn't matter what technique you use or what school of hypnotic thought you use, or whether you're Ericksonian or whether you're Elmanian. If you believe and you're attracting the people who are like-minded and believe the same thing that you do, it is very likely to work. I tell my students, make it very clear what you do. If you use essential oils, put out some videos talking about that, because for heaven's sake, people who are interested in essential oils are going to flock to you. If you use shamanism, let people know, because folks who are interested in that want that. If you use ritual, make that very clear, because you'll attract like-minded people like that. And if you're a no BS, hit it and get it, make that pretty clear too, because then you won't waste anybody's time. People who want to hit it and get it are going to be coming to you. Are you laughing at me or with me, Michael?
We're enjoying the phrase "hit it and get it," I think.
Hit it and get it hypnosis. I think that's kind of what I'm very much into. Let's get the change and move on and move along.
Yeah. No, some of us believe in long engagements.
And that works too for people who believe in long engagements. Michael does more ritualistic work than I do. We've talked about this before, and I do quick and uptime work, and we're both very successful. The clients who work with Michael might also work with me. I think we're a pretty good darn team, but Michael does it a certain way and attracts a certain client. I do it a different way and attract a certain client, as it should be. When I came to this business, I came from the very competitive field of broadcast journalism. And when I first became a hypnotist, and our local hypnotist, Larry Garrett, who some of you may or may not know, he's been doing this for over 70 years, I think. Larry was the most successful hypnotist in Chicago, where I'm headquartered. And Larry is a very generous man. He's a very loving and giving man. And Larry, to this day, has a meeting every Sunday at his office. I mean, at the first Sunday of every month at his office, even if the first Sunday falls on Christmas or Easter or Trans Visualization Day or whatever it is, Larry has the meeting on the first Sunday of every month. And he's always there. And he's always welcoming people, everybody, anybody who wants to come. If you're a chiropractor and you're interested in hypnosis, come. If you're a person off the street and you need a warm place to be, come to the meeting. He's very welcoming. And when I first started in the business and I went to his meetings, I thought, man, this is crazy, having all these people come together and share their ideas and stuff. And he said, this is not a competitive business. I thought he was nuts, by the way. I thought everything was competitive. He said, it is not a competitive business. We all get the clients that we should have. And it took me a while to learn that, but he was absolutely right. In this kind of thing, people are going to come to us. Think about the way, I was talking about this just earlier today about the doctor model. When you need to go see a doctor, you go see maybe your primary care physician, or you go see your chiropractor, or you go see your cardiologist, whoever it might be. You don't walk in for your appointment and say, tell me about cardiology before we get started. Nor does your cardiologist feel the need to explain cardiology to you. You made an appointment with a heart doctor, and so you're going to get in there and get the heart stuff checked out. Why do we feel the need to explain in the year 2024? Why do we feel the need to take any time explaining hypnosis to our clients when they have the right to Google it?
I start out by bringing out my magnets.
And if you want to teach history, the people who are interested in hypnotic history will flock to you, Michael.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that I really do that. That was
No,
just
I know.
popped out of my head. But some people just do. I'll tell you the history of hypnosis. I'll explain to you all of the nuances and everything that I learned in school, so that I can convince myself that I'm confident enough to be able to hypnotize you. And that's so not necessary. Dennis, by the way, our friend Dennis Hoofnagel here is a dentist, and I can imagine I wouldn't. Thank you, but I wouldn't want to listen to the history of dentistry, Dennis. Right? So yeah, it's a point well made, Karen.
Nor do you have to feel, do you ever feel the need, Dennis, to explain tooth extraction to somebody who comes in and says, my tooth is killing me, pull it.
Mm-hmm. But what you do need, Dennis, is you need to be a dentist. And as a hypnotist, what you need to do is you need to be the hypnotist that's the appropriate one for the client that's come to see you.
The caring dentist.
Yeah.
The
There.
caring.
Absolutely.
And of course, Dennis puts that out in his marketing, in his demeanor, and everything about him is caring. So if somebody wants a real authoritarian dentist who just wants to bang him over the head and pull that tooth, they're not going to him.
Yeah.
But somebody who wants that empathetic dentist, they're flocking to Dennis's services.
Well, this
Dennis,
is
dentist.
this is a fun chat and a lovely way to start the show, as it were. And I notice here that it is just about coming up on the hour here in Florida. And on the hour, what we do, of course, is we are going to introduce our guest of the evening to you. And Karen, if you would do the honors and segue us into that, we're ready to go.
I would love to do that. I was just going to say, as soon as I see Nathan turn on his camera so that I know he's here, I'm going to do that. And of course, he was there one step ahead of me, which it's to be, which I love very much. Our guest tonight is Nathan Gist. Have you been lurking in the background, just listening to our conversation leading
I
up to it?
have bits and pieces, yeah, trying to get the kids in bed and that kind of stuff and running back and forth. So
And you just got a little peek into the man we have with us here tonight. He's a father, he's a hypnotist, he's a motivational speaker, he's all sorts of things. But I'll tell you how I first became interested in Nathan. We were on an elevator together, and I'd seen him around before. He's hard to miss. He's tall, he's handsome. I mean, he stands out in a crowd, so he's hard to miss. But here we were on this elevator together, a crowded elevator at HypnoThoughts last year. And somebody asked me, what are you speaking about today? And I said, hypnosis is BS. Belief system, don't you know? It's magical, but it's all contingent on belief system. And then we filed out of the elevator. That was a great elevator speech, was it not?
it was great.
We filed out of the elevator, and Nathan walked up to me and said, man, I really like the way you pulled that back in for the non-hypnotists in the room. And I went, oh my God, a human being who understands hypnosis in the exact same way that I do. And I instantly fell in love with this man and said, okay, I've got to get to know this person even better. So I've kind of stalked him a little bit since then to find out what he's all about and who he is. And oh my God, he is way better than I ever even imagined. This is how big a deal he is. He's doing a pre-conference at HypnoThoughts this year. Pre-conference, right, Nathan?
Yes.
With Jason Linett. You got to be pretty good to get in cahoots with Jason Linett, right? And they're doing this pre-conference together. What is it?
It's going to be on the hypnotic storytelling.
Hypnotic storytelling. How
Yeah.
cool is
So it's
that?
amplifying change and it's attracting sales. So it's a good way to utilize stories for change work that you're doing with your clients, but then also a way to bring them in as well. So.
And he's going to be talking a little bit about stories tonight and things like that. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He's known as the Unhypnotist. And tonight he's talking about dehypnotizing clients. What the heck is that all about? We'll find out in just a minute. Nathan is a motivational speaker, a teacher, a radio host. Gosh, another thing right after my own heart. Entrepreneur, husband, and father, we know already. As a high-performance confidence coach, Nathan has trained thousands of people on how to quickly overcome fear and anxiety, effectively build confidence, and improve the quality of their life. First of all of this sounds pretty impressive, and you are quite the speaker and quite the motivational speaker. What brought you to hypnosis? How did you get to hypnosis, Nathan?
Well, it all started when the alien spacecraft came down, and then
During an eclipse, no doubt.
that's right. I had my glasses, and then they said, "This is what you're going to do." Now, you know what? I would see people like Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and some of these prolific speakers, and they'd have conversations with people, and then there would just be this massive change that would happen in their life. And I remember looking at it, I'm like, "What is that?" Like, I know that's not magic, but what is it? And then you start learning about things like neurolinguistics programming. You start learning about conversational hypnosis and change work. And it just fascinated me so much that that was a rabbit hole I just keep digging, right? Like, so, it just led to take this class and take this certification and, oh, this could be a business. And next thing you know, over a decade later, it's, something I just absolutely adore and love. And yeah, it's extraordinary.
And you are in Fredericksburg, Virginia,
Yeah.
right?
Fredericksburg, Virginia. So I'm about an hour south of DC.
And do you see clients or do you train people in speaking?
For right now, seeing clients, there's a little mix of both. Looking more to do some more of the training. But right now, it's just been, for the majority of it's just clients. So whether it's on Zoom or it's in person, I always tell people I feel more like a puppy dog. So I get somebody in my office and it's like, hi, okay, let's do this. Because it's just fun to be able to interact with them on that level. I mean, yes, we can do Zoom. Yes, there's a need and a quality for that. And, if you got people all over the country and world, that's different. But like, it's just something about having somebody in the room. So I love having that opportunity for them as well. But yes, utilizing Zoom. And then for the classes and workshops, that's an area that I want to get into as well, because I just adore it. We kind of talked about a little bit of radio and that kind of thing. So for almost 20 years, I've been in radio, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this too, because it's like, so what is your job description? I'm in a padded room talking to invisible people. Like that's, and so there's something about seeing faces and engaging with folks that just is always really just, this is placed next to my heart as well.
There is one advantage to radio, though. You get to hit the music to start, or you get to hit the commercial, so you always know where the bit ends.
That's right.
Dealing with live people, sometimes they carry the bit on farther, or they take it on a little farther. You don't always get the last word in real life. You always do in radio.
You're exactly right. Exactly right.
That's one
Yep.
advantage.
That's right. When in doubt, hit the switch.
That's right. Do you have a specialty in hypnosis? Do you have a specialty, something that you work with? I know confidence building you talk about. Is that your specialty?
Confidence is one of them. Overcoming fear is something that has really gotten me, at least recently. And I think one of the reasons is because it's not just for the person, it can be generational, right? Like there's, had an athlete one time, the guy's massive, huge lineman, right? Like, 6'4", something like that, 300 plus pounds. And he's talking about screaming when he saw a mouse. I wouldn't hit that boy if he was sleeping, right? Right? Like there's very few things going to hurt that boy. But the reality is that he had this kind of reaction, this visceral physical reaction to it. And as we tracked it down, mom and grandma reacted that way when he was a kid, and it left an imprint on his brain that this is how you react when you see this. And so that can continue on to his kids and generations from them, or it can end right there in that moment. And that's a really powerful thing.
Pardon me for interrupting, but something that I think is the mouse thing especially is a great example of this. We've learned to be afraid of things because from somebody on some level, however you think about it. And literally, just as an English major, I have to point out that the phrase "eek eek" is solely isolated to its use around mice. And seriously, if you sort of ask people, this is right. There's this association throughout our entire culture. That there's a certain way to react to mice, and I see women standing on the tops of tables with brooms, in my pictures in my mind about this as well. So it's really a whole cultural thing, isn't it?
It is, and it shows up in so many different ways for people, right? Like I remember people reacting, "Oh, I'm afraid to fly." Have you ever flown before? Have you ever flown before? No, really? Or I'm terrified of roller coasters. You ever been on one before? No. Well, and again, this stuff just goes for so long, and you don't know how it can connect with other folks. And so working with fear has been something really exciting for me, whether it is public speaking or whether it is opening a business or working in the market or horse riding. Like and that's what the beauty of hypnosis, right? Like it goes for literally everything. Again, when we talk about the unhypnosis, right, we see the statistics, 90 to 95% of behavior on autopilot. So the very few moments we get them conscious so that we can say, okay, now let's have a real conversation, right? And so it's just extraordinary to do the work in one person, because one of the things I say, it's like, I love addition, but multiplication, that's something special. And so when we do the work with one, you never know exactly where that's going to go in life. And so that's something that really excites me as well.
I've got to say, I've never ever been excited about math, but that was I can go with. I like that a whole lot. Yep. So how do you know, Nathan, that it's generational?
Well, when you have people talk about, well, my whole family's been this way, or my mom and my dad and my grandpa, my kids have this thing too. And when you hear these kind of conversations, it lets you know, like, these are fears, because we learn so much from our culture. We learn it from the people that are around us and our family units, all of this stuff. And some of it is positive and some of it isn't, right? When people say, I'm a great public speaker because the whole family is, or I'm a great athlete because I am, or I'm very artistic, right? Like we have all of these identifying statements from ourselves that we say that sometimes people told us, oh, you're just like me, you're not good at this, or you're just like me and you're great at this. And sometimes we're like, okay, I guess that's true, right? And so changing that with people and seeing the difference in the impact in their life, it can make a massive difference. I mean, I remember as a kid, how terrified my mom was of flying, right? Anytime she had to take a flight, it was this big, huge thing and this fear that was there. But for me, over time, after I took my first flight, again, I remember so terrified because everything I had heard about it. And of course, once you've got that thing locked in on your mental GPS in your brain, Of course, you're going to see every bad thing that could possibly happen. But then I took the first flight and it was like, that's not a big deal. And then the next one, and the next one, the next one. And eventually the conversation is, I don't care. I love flying because I don't have to do it. Right? Like all I got to do is hang out. And so the conversation changed. So when I talk to my children, there's not a conversation about fear, even if they do say something like, oh, I saw this on TV or I heard this. And I'm like, I've flown all over the place and I'm still here. And so to be able to stop that for people, it's huge. It's even the conversation you had earlier about scarcity, right? Coming from poverty backgrounds and stuff, that's generational as well. It's in our language, it's in the way that we interact, it's in our identity. And that's kind of the dehypnotizing that we're talking about too, to wake them up from that, but then also see what kind of influence they have on other people. Again, they're the hypnotist.
Yeah. Curious when you say this, I realized when you were talking about flying that I'm the first person in my family to have been on a jet airplane. So nobody told me to be afraid of it. So it didn't even occur to me, quite frankly, that that it was like, oh, this is really cool and it's something, new and great and an exciting adventure, but I never had anything about being frightened by it. On the other hand, my family taught me to be very frightened when it comes to money. As you were starting to say, it's like,
Yeah.
so I really can see how this is. I know their history and and sort of the path of hypnosis that I've been the recipient of or not.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, especially our families, I think vast majority of them have good intentions. It's just we don't realize the effect that it can have, right? If you have somebody that's really skittish and fearful, unfortunately for myself, like my mom is a respiratory therapist, so she works in the hospital and like she has seen the worst of everything, right? Like somebody shows up with a stubbed toe, next thing you know, they're in the morgue, and so like hearing this kind of stuff, and it's like, so her fear has been so high because she has seen worst case scenarios. But for regular, I'm going to say civilians, right? Like people who aren't medical, people who aren't firefighters or first responders or whatever, who aren't seeing the worst all the time, right? They've seen what happens when people come off of 95 and they've been the interstate. 95 is a big one here. So when they come off the interstate and there's been accidents, so that fear level is already so high, but that can easily spread to other people, especially if you don't have any point of reference. And it's somebody you trust and care about that's now telling you why this thing is scary. So it's easy to incorporate that into our life. So again, one of the reasons I like working with fear is because you just don't know how many lives you can help change just by having that conversation and moving that person past it. I mean, one of my guys came in for fear of driving over bridges. This big burly dude, right? Tattoos of the whole deal, right? Motorcycles, the whole deal. And like, again, I don't want to mess with him, right? So, but this fear of bridges, and his life started getting super small. And he stopped traveling, which means his kids stopped traveling. So now all of a sudden they're not taking family vacations because they got to travel over bridges. And then to watch him break through that thing, to get to that point where now all of a sudden he's like, I just don't think about it. We're taking a vacation. Like that to me is, why are we here? What are we doing? Yeah, that's the beauty.
You helped him make different pictures. Now, lots of people say I'm not visual, I don't make pictures. But the thing is, we are always making pictures. Sometimes they're underneath conscious awareness, but we always have pictures going on. If we didn't construct pictures, we'd never be able to find our car in a parking lot. We have some awareness of where the car is that we left out there, whether we actually physically see like a television picture in front of us or not. But you helped him create a different picture.
That's it.
Vacations rather than a picture of going over a bridge. I'd love to share, to compare our stories for just a moment.
Please.
I went to a woman who was afraid of driving over a bridge. She told me her fear was of driving over a bridge. And I said, oh my God, I'm afraid of driving over bridges too. You land in the water that way. I drive across bridges to get to the other side. And she went, yeah, that's what I mean. But in that moment, I scrambled her belief system over that one little bitty word over, because it indicated to me, because I'm words person, it indicated to me that she was making a picture of driving over the edge. And
Yep.
that launched her fear. So in that moment of asking her to think about that in a different way, that was an eye-opening moment. That's what I call hit it and get it hypnosis, because that created a different belief. So that was the way I approached her. How did you do it, Nathan? Because I think it all works. It all works. She still needed it solidified with hypnosis to make it real to her, right? So how did you do it with your client?
A lot of it was the same thing. I started treating the bridge as what gets you to the destination. It's the same thing I do with flying and those kind of things, right? Like it's just the tool that gets you to the thing that you want. So because most people, again, what do? They come in and they tell us everything they don't want. I don't want this, and I don't want that, and I don't want this. And I tell people it's like driving down the road and seeing a pothole, and you're like, don't hit it, don't hit it, don't hit it. What are you going to do? Right? Every single time. So the only way we avoid that thing that we don't want is we got to focus on where we want to go, be aware that it's there, but focus on the destination. And so as he starts thinking about that as, okay, this takes me to the vacation, this takes me to traveling, this takes me to freedom and joy. Why do I have the motorcycle in the first place? Because you want to go, right? And so the more he started seeing that, the bridge just became part of it because it helped to connect the dots to it. The airplane ride, right? All of that stuff. And when you kind of talked about how the brain's always thinking in pictures, and that's it, right? Like it doesn't speak English, it doesn't speak Swahili or Mandarin. Our brain thinks in pictures, and then we make these grunting noises that we call language to try to express.
Even if you speak Swahili, by the way, you still think in pictures.
That's it. That's it. We think in pictures and we make grunting noises and we call that the language, right? What's the weird noise I can make for Karen to say, oh, that's my name, right? And so because of that, that's how the body reacts to it as well, because there's not the nerve endings that we're talking about, right? You poke the brain and what happened, but we don't feel it. So the only way that the brain feels emotion and feelings is it sends it into the body. And same thing, if the person's, well, I feel this and I think this and whatever, it's the way that it's showing up for them. And to walk them through that process to change I love the over the bridge thing from you. I'm absolutely going to use that. It's so good because it makes it ridiculous. And the brain goes, right? Like whatever you say next. Okay. But teaching them, bringing them through it and allowing them to see this again, as A to C, this is what B, this is how I get there. And it just kept it simple. And then he started sending me other things he was afraid of. Oh, I was on a roof and check out this. And I'm like, this is cool because that's what I love about the brain too. It's not linear. And you got me so good, Karen. I absolutely loved it when you were talking at the winter conference in Orlando, when you were talking about how, and we know like the brain is this web and it's all connected and stuff. And so sometimes we think we got to go backwards to work on things, but the way that the mind works, if it's all connected and interwoven, any point in there can start creating change from there. And it's phenomenal to see. Yeah.
It makes me think of E.T. You know the movie?
Yeah.
A lot of people know the movie E.T., right? If in order to enjoy the movie, we have to buy the premise that the little Reese's Pieces following thing is an alien that can communicate with the human. And we have to build up empathy for the little alien. We have to buy certain principles in order for that to make sense, right?
Yep, exactly
and
right.
if we can buy into that, then we can buy into almost anything else. Buy-in. It's a real important element. You have to have the buy-in to the thing to begin with. Now, I'm not sure what got me off on the alien ET thing. It may come to me in a moment. But what I was thinking about, Nathan, is what we've been talking about here sounds an awful lot like conversation, just regular conversation. You're talking somebody into a change. Now, what about that is hypnosis? She asked sarcastically.
Yeah, that's the fun part, right? Like for most of my folks, when they come in, especially for the folks for quitting smoking, I love it how they come in and they look at the chair and they're like, is that the chair? Like, like it's this magical thing. And it's funny because of the way mine works. Like, I guess I've kept the same one for so long that the way that it kind of sags, it's got these two little ones here, and then it's got this other one right here. So it looks like it's smiling for the chair. And I'm like, yeah, that's the hypno seat. But what's cool is I said, most people will quit smoking before they ever get in the chair. So there's a suggestion. And through the conversation that we go through, all of a sudden, all of these reasons, stories, excuses, all that stuff that was been there for so long, we just start pulling it apart. And all of a sudden, oh, well, what if that wasn't true? Or what if you did do this? Or what if you could do that? And next thing you know, the change work starts. And sometimes I even tell them, look, you've already quit. We'll jump in the chair and do the formality of this thing so that you know 100%, but you're already done. And sometimes it's just that confidence that's there, one expressed to them saying, hey, you can do it. And then also the fact that we've gone through and pulled apart all that stuff that said they can't. Because, yeah, you absolutely can do whatever you put your mind to.
I have to ask again, what is the hypnosis? Is it when they go to the chair?
Oh, what is the hypnosis?
Yeah.
I told you, unhypnotist. Right? Like, that's not my job. And the moment I figured out that I don't have to try to hypnotize anybody anymore, freedom, baby. Woo! Right.
Please just say that again. You figured out you don't really have to hypnotize
I don't have to
anybody.
hypnotize anybody. It's not my job. My job is to dehypnotize people. My job is to not put them to sleep. It's to wake them up. And the reason for that is because they're already in the trance. The trance says they can or can't. The trance says I have to, I must, I gotta. The trance says there's no way. When all of a sudden they start to realize, oh, well, wait a second, that doesn't have to be true. Or what if I could? Like, that's the power of this stuff. That's the beauty of it. And unfortunately, we've been stuck in this model that says that I have some kind of magical powers and whatever, which I'm getting to the point now. Jason said this a couple of times, and I think you might have got me too. Thank you very much, Karen. Where as if they're already believing that, you don't need to necessarily tell them that's not the truth. You might not want to lean into it and be like, "Ooh, watch how magical I am." But if that's what it takes for them, that you're going to do something, say something, whatever, and all of a sudden, boom, cool, because they've already bought into it. So go for it.
They
Because I
brought
used to
that
say, no,
trance
that's not the
in
case.
too. They
What's that?
brought that trance in with them too.
That's
You
right.
don't dehypnotize them from every trance they bring in. You only have to dehypnotize them from the trance that's limiting them from getting what they want. Not from every trance that they own, just the trance that's keeping them from getting what they want. That's your only job.
That's it. That's it. And it really simplifies it. So now all of a sudden it's not worrying about depth. Now it's not all of a sudden it's not worrying about, is this technique and this and blah, 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 but all this stuff. I mean, it's cool to be able to have that. And I think you should know it. But again, they're already doing it. We have to teach them how to use their superpowers for good. And that's what makes the big difference.
That's a very interesting thing that you say. I like the way you frame that. We have to teach them how to use their superpowers for good. I congratulate my clients on the trance they've achieved when they tell me that they must do something. Wow, that is such a skill. I can't believe that every single time you see a spider, you remember to freak out. That is a skill. That's not normal. Not everybody does that. That's a skill that you've acquired. Wow. And you acquired that because, and they almost always have an answer, which, by the way, is an instant induction into a regression because they can say, oh, it's been there since I was 3 years old. Great. Tell me about that. And
Yep.
without ever closing their eyes or counting down or saying get smaller, younger, or any other of that hocus pocus nonsense.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to jump in on that, Nathan. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Oh, no, you don't. Keep on going, girl. I'm here to learn too.
No, isn't that the thing? I mean, it's a different way of looking at it. And I knew it that day on the elevator that you understood. I'm not saying that the way, please don't misunderstand me here. I am not saying that the way I understand it is the way to understand it. I'm saying that that's the way I understand it and the way I practice it, because I think all sorts of things that I don't practice work equally well for the people who do practice it and the people who have that belief system. So I'm not going to diss anything that anybody does. But the day that Nathan said that to me, I knew that he understood it in the same way that I understand it or believe it or treat it, which is a little different than a lot of people who believe that they have to do something to somebody, which, by God, like you said, was an awful lot of responsibility, wasn't it?
And the pressure was ridiculous. I mean, I just remember early on, right, thinking about how, okay, I have to do it this way and I got to say it this way. And what if I do this? And like, there was all this fear. I work with some actors and stuff too, and some directors. And it's one of these things where one of the problems when folks come into that arena is we have something called good soldier, good student, where the problem for some people when they're going into acting is that if they're going to a school for it, they do a performance, and the first thing they do is they look to the instructor, did I do it right? And then they're waiting for that thing. That's not how it works. It's whatever shows up in the performance is what's there, right? It lives that one time in that moment. And sometimes what happens for us is that we get that mentality because that's what the schools reinforce, and the most of the world reinforce. You do the speed limit and you're a good student, right? Those kind of things. But when it comes to thinking, when it comes to the creative aspect of it, there's not a right or wrong. Hypnosis, there's not a right or wrong. If I'm making something silly, if you dance around in 3 circles and touch your head 5 times and like, and that makes somebody quit smoking, cool, do it.
Right. I had a client who came to me and she'd been cursed by her boyfriend. He put her under a spell. She said she was under a hypnotic seal. She asked me if I could lift a hypnotic seal. And I said, absolutely, come on in. This is when I still saw people in person. Because she gave me all the information I needed right there. She believed in some kind of superstitious magic.
And
So
that somebody has to release me from it.
Right. And I said, so how did he put you under this hypnotic seal? And she said, he whispered to me in my sleep. Okay, thank you, because that told me exactly how to unravel that trance. I had to put her in hypnosis and whisper things to her with her eyes closed. Okay, we got that. I also knew that she believed in some kind of superstitious magic. Okay, I'm not saying that it's not magic. I'm just saying that's what she told me she believed. And so I told her, I know exactly how you undo a seal. Now everybody knows, notice the language pattern. Everybody knows that something that I am pulling out of thin air. Everybody knows that to reverse a polarity or a seal, you put one hand facing up and the other hand facing down, and you have to slap them together 3 times, because 3, of course, is the magical number. Now, in order to make sure that this works, we're going to lift the seal by having you turn to your left 3 times. And as you do, you have to continue to do this to reverse the polarity. She stood up, she turned around 3 times, she did this, and when she did the 3rd time, I said, how does that feel? And she said, oh, so much lighter. I think it's gone. She thought herself into it. Why not let her think herself out of it?
Nailed it.
But I didn't nail anything. I listened to my client, and she told me, this is why I love to teach. Listen to them, and they'll tell you everything you need to know. When I listened carefully, she said, my boyfriend put me under a hypnotic seal. I already knew. Okay, we're dealing with magic. How did he do that? He whispered to me in my sleep. Excellent. I've got 2 things to do here. Let's undo the seal with some magic, and then let's close your eyes, do a nice progressive muscle relaxation, which I rarely do, but in this case I did. Do some nice in the recliner, eyes closed stuff, and whisper some things about confidence and taking power and empowering yourself. And she came out of that and went away, and the seal was broken. But I didn't do any magic, and I didn't have any answers for anybody, just like you said, Nathan.
That's it. That's it. And when I say nailed it, it just in hearing and what's going on. Again, in the beginning, because of the fear and security, even though we want some type of certainty in it, we want to have the script, we want to have the thing. You had mentioned and when we were in Orlando, that when people are going through techniques and all of that stuff, you do the theory of it so that you kind of have an idea of it, and then whatever happens in life is what happens, and you adapt and create it from there. And so lots of times in that circumstance, right, it's the 4 questions we always want to ask. How are you feeling? How would you rather feel? What are you doing? What would you rather do? And in those 4 questions, they will tell you absolutely everything you need to know. And all you got to do is reinforce those things and tell them and help them to believe, because as we know, this is a confidence game, right? Like, as long as we believe that we know that they can do the thing, ta-da, amazing changes happen. I mean, and for how many people are walking around with such little belief in their own life because either nobody is giving them those words of encouragement. For some of us, the hypnosis is just being a cheerleader for them.
Here's where the Grinder guy comes in. I have to give a plug here to my to my mentor. John Grinder's to me, most famous statement, at least it's the one that I probably quote from him more than anything else, is that he said, in order to create change, two things are required: congruity and a ritual. Now, the particular ritual, by the way, that Karen did with a turn around and slap the hands, etc., is the ritual that was an appropriate servo mechanism for that client to be able to go, oh, I've got a ritual that corresponds to this thing that I'm dealing with. And we know with all kinds of rituals, we are creating, if we're creating technology, we're finding out, where are you, where do you want to be, or what are you feeling, what do you want to feel, what are you doing, what do you want to do? But we get this present state, before state, and our job is to build that bridge in a way that's meaningful to the client, that allows them to go, okay, it's okay for me to be here now. And that involves stepping out. This is the meta pattern, ladies and gentlemen, that involves, here's the situation. I'm going to step back from it. I'm going to evaluate it and figure out what I need. And knowing that now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a device, some technique, some method that allows us to walk from one place to the other and have it now be our new reality. Yeah.
Yeah. Well
Lovely.
said.
Cool.
And the thing that I pulled out of nowhere, it was part Gary Craig from EFT, because there's something in the study of EFT where Gary Craig talks about reversing polarity. So I didn't just make that up. There's some science behind that someplace. I'm just saying.
Well,
And yet you could have.
I go, yes, but I'm just saying, learn everything you can learn and then throw the rules out. Because if I had just been doing EFT with this woman and reversing polarity, that might have worked, right? If I had just been doing NLP with her, that might have worked. If I had just been doing hypnosis with her, that might have worked. But I pulled out a bunch of different things that addressed exactly the words she used with me. And that was all that was important. Never, never, ever did she ask me, oh, where did you learn that technique? Oh, how many years did you study that technique? Oh, where did that come from? Just like I never asked my cardiologist, how long have you been studying cardiology?
right.
So please explain cardiology to me before we start this appointment.
But again, even in that right there, there's the confidence, right? The assurance from you that it's okay. It's the conversation I have with folks too, when especially when I have the moms come in and they're going through something, they're trying to get through it. And I'm like, look, you're the greatest hypnotist that ever walked the planet. Because the moment your little kid falls down, skins their knee, and you go over and you kiss the boo-boo, right? And they get up and they go off and play, you didn't do anything, right? Like the epidermis is still cut, it's still damaged. So the nerve endings are still having pain sensors, but you just said it's not a problem, and they just go off and do their thing. And for us, when we do the same thing and we kind of kiss the boo-boo, we're like, look, you can get past this. This isn't a big deal. And all of a sudden they go, you mean it's that simple? All I got to do is just drive, use a bridge. All I got to do is just see that, right? Like, yes, that's it. And guess what? You're okay.
Tell them what you want them to believe.
Yes.
And
No,
don't
or
watch.
they told you what they want to believe, and just be like, it's okay to believe that.
Right. Right. Tell them what they want to believe. Tell them what you want them to believe, or tell them what they want to believe. Either way, it works. Go
That's
watch
it.
the movie.
Metaphorically, the clients are showing up to have their boo-boos kissed, is what I'm hearing.
In that sense, that's it, right? We're just
No.
leaning over going, it's okay, baby, come on.
If you can sell that, put a kissing booth up at the fair. 25 cents a pop, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, Nathan, that you're talking here about dehypnotizing rather than hypnotizing. Why do we all learn that we have to hypnotize them?
You know, it is an interesting thing to look at, because I think part of it's because hypnosis has the stigma, right? It's that kind of stuff, right? Or you got to do the magical thing for it to happen. And because I think for a lot of people, and I'm guessing, again, all this stuff is made up, that somebody who is afraid to lose control, or that somebody's going to take over them or whatever, the idea of walking around and thinking that you're already in the trance, to realize that we're very rarely conscious. It's, for some people, it can be kind of scary. And then the idea of somebody having to do something over us, like that's, again, giving us permission and thinking that that's okay. Like, then, right, that's why I know it's okay, because this person hypnotized me. Or, right, like, it's just, I think about how the amount of money, the millions of dollars that companies and corporations dump into trying to take control of here for us, right? We believe their stories. I open up the magazine, oh, I'm clearly not that handsome, or I got to have this cream, or I got to buy those pants, or I got to do this thing, or, right, I'm not enough because of me. And then I turn on the television and I'm trying to watch my show to make my laughter be there. And all of a sudden I watch the commercial. Is your hair growing? Are you afraid of, like, have you sneezed today? Well, you might have sneezy disease. Right? Like, so
Oh, Nathan, can I jump in on that today and say
please.
this is the way mainstream media is hypnotizing America
Yes.
today. I saw the evening news talking about, if you haven't had eye damage, did you look at the sun yesterday during the eclipse? Well, if you don't notice any repercussions yet, just realize that it could take 48 hours before you know you need to go see your eye doctor, which was a direct suggestion to say, if you're not blind yet, you still could be. There's still time.
I'm
Call your
thinking,
eye doctor now while you still can.
I'm thinking that the law firms, the big law firms, will be giving us an opportunity to file a class action suit against, someone on the sun. I don't know who exactly it will be. I saw a commercial today too for a memory enhancement product. And I'm not going to bash a particular brand, but they had this thing going on, and at the bottom of the screen, while they're saying all the great things about what this will do for you as you age, at the bottom of the screen it says in small white letters, by the way, on a TV, so you couldn't really even see them. It says, this product has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and is not intended to treat, cure. Basically, what it said is, this drug isn't really intended to do anything. It has no purpose, and nobody's even suggested that it was good. But it's hiding at the bottom of the screen, right?
Yep.
While these great images and seductive, oh God, I really want what they're holding up to me, are on the screen.
Well, the flip side of that is, if you believe the product is improving your memory, it just might.
I'd forget to take it.
Well, then that would be your proof to disqualify the suggestion.
That's
But
right.
But somebody who takes it and suddenly believes that they can remember street names better and credits that, they've improved their memory. They've done self-hypnosis to improve their memory. And if the over-the-counter, my favorite one of those commercials, by the way, Michael, is the guy who says, I was looking for something over-the-counter to improve my memory. I didn't want to go to any fancy doctor or get prescribed medicine. I wanted something that I could just get like over the counter. But anyway, but he found it.
Is this sold at 7-Eleven?
But he found it. And if it worked, placebo is the most effective drug in the world.
Well, it will work if you burn the white candle.
Well, right. And if that's what you believe, then it's going to work for you. Lissa Rankin, who wrote Mind Over Medicine, is an MD, a doctor, who discovered along the way, she took a long sabbatical from practicing medicine so she could learn about spontaneous remission. And one of the things in that study that she learned was that people get better as soon as they call their doctor and make an appointment. It happens almost every time. You are really, really, really sick. You can barely move. You finally manage to get to the phone. You make the appointment with the doctor. You hang up and, oh, good, I've got an appointment tomorrow. Now I can probably eat dinner. It's an amazing thing because you have now turned it over to somebody who can fix this for you, which, by the way, is what happens with us a lot. When our accidental hypnosis that we get in the real world through generational trance and all that kind of thing that you were talking about, Nathan, all of that is what they bring in with them. right? And then they dissolve that through work with us because they believe that we can help them.
That's exactly it. That's it. And again, why is it the unhypnosis? Because all of a sudden they realize, oh, it doesn't have to be that way. You mean everybody's not afraid of mice? Like, it's wow. You mean people do speak in front of groups and they don't die? It's just,
And once you know that, you can't unknow it.
yep.
So once you help the person develop a new belief in something, have an eye-opening moment, a light bulb moment, they can't unknow that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we start to play with that, right? Future pacing and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now see this scenario and see this way, and learning everything from the language patterns they're using to the identity statements that they're using for themselves, and all of it. Like, and part of the work that I do too is helping them to get that. Because does anybody here like to be wrong? No? I can admit it, but I don't like it. And if I tell myself that I'm scared and nervous or afraid or I can't or whatever, then I have to be right in some way, shape, or form. Neurologically, that stuff's going to show up in there. And so, and then when we look at identity statements, that's something else too. I love it when my clients come in and they're like, I'm a smoker. And I look at them like, you're not a smoker. And I get that look of, what? You put barbecue in a smoker, right? Like I wouldn't call you a shoer because you wear shoes or a glasser because you wear glasses. It's the thing, right? And so what happens with that is all of a sudden that little statement goes, what? Like you said before, oh, I'm so afraid of going over the bridges, right, and into the water. The mind scrambles for a moment, and all of a sudden it's, huh. And then we talk about identity, right? When I say I'm a dad, like that means something. That everything in my life filters through that, right? When they hand me that baby at the hospital, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, you're going to let me take her home? Are you stupid? Like, do you know what an idiot I am? Right? Like, I got to keep this person alive. And then all of a sudden, the filter starts happening in my life where there's things I do and I don't do, conversations and decisions that I make, everything filtering through being a husband and a father and these things. Like, that's part of my identity. But a cigarette, a bridge, a feeling of anxiety or fear or whatever we're feeling, that's the feeling. It's not who I am. And it's the same conversations. And we take it from the cigarette, we take it to the actual feelings. I am anxious. Okay, so you're the one pissing everybody off. Like, you're going to all of these people and making it right. No, it's a feeling. We all feel this stuff. I'm not this. It's something I'm experiencing. And creating that distinction with people is a type of that unhypnosis, right? Because otherwise, if I am this thing, this is my identity, then I have to make this happen neurologically, and then that's going to be my experience. And when all of a sudden we create that little bit of disassociation in that healthy way of me versus the feeling, experience, whatever, again, dehypnotizing, yeah.
No, role play with me for a second. But
Please.
no, that's my anxiety.
Yeah. Where do you keep it?
It's all over in here. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's my anxiety.
So you own that.
Well, I don't want it anymore.
Oh, okay. Did you buy that somewhere? Where did you get that from?
Yeah. Because, is that what you're talking about with the identity level? They're owning it. They're possessing something.
They're owning it. It's possession, right? Like if there's a glass bottle or something like that, right? And I'll even do this example with them too. If there's a I always try to give people water and that kind of stuff in the beginning. And so if as insignificant as this thing is, if I try to take it away from you, what's our first instinct? Well, no, that's mine. Right? You gave it to me, now it's mine. And we have to look at how powerful that statement is, because now all of a sudden, if I'm owning something, then it's mine, right? It's the same thing when we're talking about sicknesses and things, right? There's identifying somebody separate from the thing they're experiencing. If somebody's going through a disease, it doesn't mean they are the disease. They're not the disease. It's something they're experiencing. If it's an emotion, you're not the emotion, you're experiencing the emotion. And if we call it for what it is, we're creating that distinction. We're creating that separation from this thing so that it's not, this is me. It's just something I'm experiencing.
Arguably, if I might, it's something that I've been doing. You know, and the notion that that an emotion or that anxiety, for example, as a more general thought, is a thing is absurd. That it's a process, and it's a process of running your brain in a certain way. And some of us have gotten very, very good at it. And when you know that you're doing it, you have this wonderful option of being able to discover, oh, I could stop this. Bob Newhart was right. You know?
Well, don't you have a pill? No, just stop it.
But Michael, I would wager, and Nathan, I think this is exactly what you're talking about, that is the best use of this skill that we have to empower the clients to figure out how to change their trance so they don't have to go back into that same old trance again. So they
Yeah.
can live a different thing that they want to live.
And to catch it faster. Again, I'm not naive enough to say that. So I had a lady come in and she used this great phrase. She said she calls her experience like a Rolodex of shame. Something would happen, an experience, or she would do something, or somebody would do something, and all of a sudden in her brain, it's like, oh, that's like when this happened. That's like when this happened. That's like when this happened. And all of a sudden, she's going through this thing in her head, and she's in a spiral that could last days. And I told her, I said, I'm not naive enough to say that you're never going to do that again. But if we can catch it 50% of the time, 60, 70, 80, 90% of the time, that's a different quality of life.
Nobody
And
uses Rolodex anymore.
Well, and and every once in a while I use that example, and I've had some of my millennials come in and they're like, "A what?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to explain a Rolodex."
Think about your phone, and if you move it like this,
It is interesting, and it's also interesting what you just said about updating our metaphors. Because
Yeah.
it behooves you to update the metaphors that you're using.
That's very true. It's very true. But it's also funny, and sometimes I'll do it unintentionally, just so I can have that moment of rapport with them as well. Oh, that's so silly. You know, I always call myself a geek when I do this stuff, and it just gives me more reasons to dump more of the information to them and put them on overload, because I want them in that state where it's like, oh, okay. Clearly for the last half hour, he's told me all the reason I can stop or do this thing, and it must be right somewhere in there. It's kind of like, fine, I'll just do it.
Empowerment is what you're talking about.
That's
and
right. Yeah, that's it.
Do it earlier. I've heard you do it a couple of times here tonight, where you kind of laugh at yourself, chuckle at yourself. You earlier sort of flubbed a word and you said, "Oh, that," and then you corrected it. That is confidence. That is empowerment. That is, I can take my faults, my foibles, I can take little mistakes and not dwell on, oh my God, I'm not perfect, but go, look at this. I can laugh at myself. I'm perfectly imperfect, and I don't mind sharing that with you. And that's exactly what I like to teach my clients to become: perfectly imperfect, and be okay with that.
That's powerful.
That imperfection is a great place to be, is it not? You were doing it. I'm guessing that you teach that to your clients. I'm guessing that you empower them with it, and I'm guessing that you exemplify that. I mean, walking the walk and talking the talk is one thing. How do you incorporate storytelling into that, which you have done a couple of times here tonight too? But I'd love for you to just detail it and explain it.
Yeah, well, what I appreciate about stories and is they can be non-confrontational, right? Like if I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, you know, Bob, here's your problem. This is what you got to do. What? Versus kind of walking them through a metaphor or some kind of story and change work story. It's really powerful, because now all of a sudden there's a reception of it. I had a lady not too long ago. She was talking about the difference in her marriage was that she and her husband went and watched the movie Fireproof, which talked about it's this Christian ministry movie, and all of a sudden it's teaching about how prayer in the family and this kind of thing. And this thing that she had been trying to get her husband to make the change for so long, he watches this movie, and all of a sudden it's like, ding, the light goes off, because it wasn't somebody going after him. It was all of a sudden that realization there in his mind, and the story spoke to him on the depth level. And it was like, wow, The relationship changed, their quality of life changed, the family changed, there was story. And it's the same thing for us, where I can go after it and tell somebody 1,000 times that you can do it. I believe in you. The pep talk is nice, but it's still, it's like, he said I can do it. Okay, I still feel like crap. Right. So, versus telling that story to them, and all of a sudden that emotion inside shows up and they go, oh, I could do that. Huh. What if I tried that? And it's a really powerful way, because again, the language of the subconscious is the imagination. And so the pictures that we're playing, the conversations that we're having, and when we're delivering a story that has some type of change, when it has somebody making the progress, when again, when folks come in, forgive me to keep coming back to it, but keeping people from quitting smoking, I'll go through and talk about all these people that had their situations, the mom that had this whole routine of how she had to smoke, or the lady who plunged the drapes into the bathtub and all the gunk came up and they made this change, or the person who had that nervous tick of checking his pocket for his cigarettes, and all of these things, because now they're hearing successes without me saying, well, let me tell you why I'm such a great hypnotist and why this is going to be so good for you. Now all of a sudden they're going, well, if they did it, maybe I can too. We look at the 4-minute mile, right? It's humanly impossible. Nobody in the world will do it. And then all of a sudden they did. And it's like, yeah, and next. Right? It's okay. I mean, Ford said it, right? Whether you believe you can or can't, you're right. Amen. That's it. Scripture says, as a man thinks, so shall he be. That's it. Like, we think about these things in the way that we look at this. And if we get stuck in these conversations, that's the hypnosis. Wake up. Guess what you're limited by?
I'm going to point out one other thing I find very interesting about you, Nathan. I've had several students and clients talk about, students in particular, talk about being in areas where they're around a lot of, I don't know, if evangelical Christians or people who say, oh my God, that's the work of the devil. Now, I have heard you a couple of times mention a Christian movie. I've heard you mention different things like that. It sounds like you may have that base of Christianity in your wheelhouse. How do you deal with that when people say that?
I don't. No, it's a really basic conversation. It's I think for most people, if it's somebody is like staunch, like this is, the devil and you're, all that kind of stuff, like I ain't going to try to fight that. It's not my job. It's the same thing. Like if somebody wants to battle me about my faith and that kind of stuff, yeah, good luck, because I'm not going to play. It's not my game. This is what I believe. This is what you believe. Have a nice day. And so actually, I think next Sunday, I have somebody, we're doing a podcast about this too. He asked me to be a guest, where we're talking about what happens when people are trying to throw all this stuff at you. But I think for most people, the open-mindedness of, look, you're already doing it. I'm going to teach you how to do it better. Where hypnosis is something that, if we can take it from the God perspective, that we have this beautiful gift, and I start looking at scriptures and different words that I can speak to them for that, then the authority comes from that, not from me. Like I said, as a man thinks, so shall it be. That's a scripture, right? And if I'm sitting there saying this, and inside of myself, I'm telling myself all the things I can't do and why it's so scary and why it's going to be so awful, then there's the truth from it, right? And helping them to understand the tool that hypnosis is, rather than the control that they think they're losing, that they're actually getting it. It's a great way to make that difference for them. And if somebody, again, if they're so, if that's their choice, you're not going to change their mind. That's just not your client. But if you want to have a real conversation that's open, all day long, I'm here.
The good news, Nathan, I think is that if that's their choice, they're probably not going to show up in your office for you to even need to convince them in the first place.
Correct.
And I think when people come to see me, there is an implied, it's implied that they have that they're open to some possibility that this might actually be valuable to them.
Yeah. And what I've appreciated too is, because I've worked in ministry for 25 years or so, like done stuff all over the world and just extraordinary things to be able to be part of. And I'm super grateful for it. But I've worked with all gambits of faith, to absolutely zero to like it's about as opposite as you can get. And it's not, again, it's not my job to convince somebody to believe something or not. They either do or they don't. I'll use whatever shows up. And if I do find out that somebody's a Christian and they're working with me, great. Now I can ask them, do you want me to infuse scripture in this? And now all of a sudden their faith gets to be reinforced, and there's different metaphors and conversations that I can have to move them along, because I'm utilizing what's already there as a core foundation for them and why they can use it more effectively. If it's not, cool. We'll use whatever's there. If I'm patting my head like you talked about, then I'll do that too. Like, I'm not going to sit there and try to talk about stuff I don't know, right? Like, and I've had, worked with Muslims, I've worked with Hindus, and I've worked with, pagans and the whole thing across it. And if I'm not comfortable using certain metaphors in conversations, I'm not going to, because I'm not going to try to fake that with somebody, because they're going to pick up that with inauthenticity in a second. But if they're telling me these things, cool, same thing, I can reflect it back. And it doesn't have to be a faith thing, it's just a tool. Is a hammer evil? Depends on what you use it for.
I do hope that you pick up from this man some of the things that I pick up from him. One of the reasons that the confidence, my theory is, or my belief is, one of the reasons that the confidence just oozes out of you, Nathan, and is so congruent and is so natural, is because you know who you are. You've come to grips with who you are. You've come to grips with what you can do, what you can't do is okay, and you do what you do the best you can possibly do it. You've come to grips with who you are, and you're okay. And boy, that's the way I like to empower my clients, so that they are okay with who they are. And I think that's what makes you so very special. It's that authenticity. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I just want to open this up. If anybody has any questions, anything that you'd like to ask, let's ask that very quickly. I put Nathan's contact information in the chat room if you want to go grab his email and phone number and that kind of thing. But you also, Nathan, have an ebook, Confidence in Public Speaking Supercharger audio program and ebook, that when I got your email, you hadn't built the page for it yet. Have you built the page, or can we get in touch with you to get that?
Can you see the hesitation in my face?
And I did not warn him that I was going to put his feet to the fire on this.
No.
But I'm trying to get us something really, really special from our guests.
It is. It's something that I put together. But as far as the webpage, I have, yeah.
Care about your webpage. We just want to know about that free audio program. So tell us about that. How are we going to get it?
I don't know. That's a great question. Suggestions? It's something that I don't know.
We email you with the email enclosed. Will you provide something to us? A motivational
I can
speech?
do that. Yeah, if somebody's really interested, I can email that to you. It was something that I was going to put together to sell and that whole deal, but I just, yeah.
Together to sell, but we can also post on the virtual chapter group any information or links and stuff about that as well. So please make sure that you get them to us, and we'll
be happy to do that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I'm not just trying to get something free from you, but I think that
you're more than welcome to it. Yeah.
You offer very, very valuable stuff, and I just want to make sure that the people who come on this program are privy to it, because we invite people to the show that we think really have something to offer to the hypnosis community. That's why we chose you.
I greatly appreciate that. If I can, I'll put the link in there to the talk that Jason, myself, and Jesse will be doing in at Hypnothoughts. Is that okay with you? And if not, no worries.
It's fine with me. Nobody will see the chat except in here. So why don't you tell us how we can, because this goes out tomorrow for replay. And so.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
If you don't get to see the chat room, tell us about it, please.
Yeah, so it's just going to be the talk, the pre-conference event at Hypnothoughts. It's in July. If you just go to Hypnothoughts, you can see all the pre-conferences and everything that's there. So click on the link and you can see it. That's probably the easiest way to get there. Yeah, but I'll tell you, because I wanted to do this so much, I completely forgot about all that stuff, because it was like, I'm so happy to just play with you and Michael and everybody here, where I'm like, and hearing the
I knew
conversations,
this
I'm
would be
like,
a really
"Let's
special
play."
night. I know it would be a very special night. So, by the way, check him out at the HypnoThoughts site. But before we even get to HypnoThoughts, don't forget the Hypno Expo is coming up in May. And Michael, talk so they can see the cover of your beautiful.
Absolutely. The Hypno Expo 2024, May 17th through the 19th here in Orlando, and you want to get your hotel reservation soon. So check in at iact.org or imdha.com for the details about that. And by the way, while you're here in Orlando for the Hypno Expo, you also might be interested in a certified stress management consultant training, which is my 2-day post-conference program as well. And we're looking forward to that. So it's getting, by the way, the temperature was like just about 90 degrees here today, ladies and gentlemen. If you are not in Florida, this is the place to be. So please, come and join us.
Some of
Now-
us who don't deal with the humidity don't want to necessarily. But what I have to say is it's never been that humid in May in Orlando. It's always beautiful for the Hypno Expo. The autos have some special deal going that they work for the weather with the weather gods.
Turn a dehumidifier on, unlike the one that they have in Chicago in July.
Well, we have no dehumidifier. It's just humid, baby. All right. We hope to see you in Orlando. We hope to see you at HypnoThoughts or any place. Be back with us this time next month, the second Tuesday of May. Gila Zach will join us and her Two Minds theory. It's going to be very cool. Before you go away, Nathan, I just want to say this has been a great evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And everybody look at the, did I misspell Fredericksburg? Is that what?
You did
Yeah,
the first time.
just fredericksburghypnosis.com. So that's information on me. Yeah, or email, phone number, whatever.
Hypnosis.com. Right? Okay. Pay attention to that and not anything I put in the chat room because who knows what I misspelled. Be back with us next month. It'll be great. Nathan, you have been great, Nathan Gist. And before you go, everybody open your mics and let's give him that send off that he deserves because this was really great.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Nathan.
you.
Thank you guys so much. It was
you.
wonderful.
Thank
Thank you so much.
That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
See you soon, my friend.
Bye.